My little brother was going to school at UC Irvine, and he said he wanted to drop out of school and do music. We decided to get together, start a label called Funk Volume. I felt like we only reached like 25% of our potential. If you really want to look at what's going to happen in music, turn to the independent community and see what they're doing, and that's what the major label will probably be doing in the next 3 to 5 years.
Studios of the Get Busy podcast. I am sitting here today with Dame Ritter, founder of Funk Volume, independent music label.
Yes.
You have seen a lot in the music scene, but I want to start with your time at Deloitte,
Okay.
right? Because I don't meet a lot of hip hop artists and enthusiasts who started at Deloitte.
Right.
So let's talk about like your journey a little bit, and then we'll get into your, the whole Funk Volume story.
The rise and fall.
Yeah, the rise and fall.
Of Funk
Exactly.
Volume. Sure.
Yeah. Let's go, Deloitte.
So, Deloitte. How did I get there, or what it was like?
Like how did you start so you're a consultant at Deloitte,
Yes.
right? You weren't an accountant. You were like consultant.
Management consultant, yes.
Management consultant,
Yep.
right? Okay, so take us from what led you away from that career path into a very difficult career path that you took with Funk Volume. So how did that happen? What was the pivot?
Yeah, I mean, it was really the economy. I mean, I graduated from business school from Stanford in 2007. So I was only at Deloitte for a year and some change. And at that time, the economy wasn't doing that well. A lot of companies were laying folks off, and I was caught in a round of layoffs. So it was kind of forced out. I can't say that I was too happy at the job. I feel like I was learning, but it was definitely something that I didn't want to do long term. If I had it my way, I definitely would have stayed more than a year and some change, but I knew that it wasn't going to be a long-term thing for me. Anyway, I was just kind of forced out early, and it just so happened that around that same time, my little brother was going to school at UC Irvine here in Southern California, and he said he wanted to drop out of school and do music. Up until this point, been a fan of music, but never wanted to pursue it as a career, never even thought about it. But my brother wanted to drop out of school and do music. He had a friend of his that he went to high school with that was equally as frustrated, but in a different situation because he was signed to a major record label already. He just wanted to get out of that deal and pursue music independently. So my brother dropped out of school. We decided to get together, start a label called Funk Volume, and eventually we got him out of his record deal, and we were just off and moving, we weren't moving anywhere initially. We were trying to figure things out. We had to figure things out. But, I think my experience as a consultant in terms of how you approach problems, how you research industries and things like that, it just was pretty simple. Like, we need fans.
Right.
Fans are the bloodline to, customers. Fans are the bloodline to any business. So if we can get in front of people, build that relationship, build that community, then it would unlock anything that the guys wanted to do, whether that's touring, selling merchandise. That's ultimately what it was about. And at that time, MySpace was still around. It was probably on its way out, but Facebook was emerging as kind of like the dominant platform. And I saw that. I was like, wow, we need to really kind of make a home on Facebook. And so it took some negotiating and, try to pull them, because MySpace was just more fun for creatives. You could add music to it. You could put...
So maybe explain to the younger listeners what MySpace was, because it was a big deal, like Napster, MySpace.
I don't know if it was it probably wasn't the first social network, but it was the first big one.
It was the first big one with a vibe, right? Yeah. And it was a music vibe.
Yeah, and you could, whereas Facebook was very just blue and white, it looked very corporate, it looked very college-y, because that's what the initial demographic was. Where on MySpace, you can do a lot of different things on it in terms of like you can skin it with your favorite characters. You can have music playing when you go to the page. You can have your top 5 friends appearing on it. So it was definitely catered more towards creative people because you can really kind of make it look however you want it to look.
Right.
So that's why it was difficult to get the artists to adopt Facebook because comparatively it looks so boring. Right. So, but just kind of looking at the numbers and kind of what was happening on Facebook, I knew that like everybody was migrating over to Facebook in terms of the fans or potential fans. So knew that we wanted to kind of create a home on Facebook. So we started to, upload content, engage with people, host contests, use the group function, and just really anybody that commented positively on what we were doing, just kind of engage with them. So it was always a heavy lift. I mean, it's a heavy lift all the way throughout, but especially to get that initial momentum with the content that you're dropping, and then just coming up with different ways to tell your story and to engage with fans. We eventually got a good amount of momentum on Facebook. It's always good for, if you feel like a new platform is emerging and it's going to be relevant, it's always good to hop on it early before they start changing a lot of things. Because, a lot of people still use Facebook today, but it would be more difficult to grow a fan page or to grow a community on Facebook today because they've changed the algorithm and made it much more difficult to reach the people that you want to reach without spending a decent amount of money. Right. So, I think just the fact that we were on there early and heavily engaged with folks early as the platform was growing, I think it was, very smart of us to do that.
How did you, 2009 is when Funk Volume launched. Is that right?
Yeah, about 2008, 2009. Yep.
Yeah, and that's before, the whole idea of social communities was really mainstream, right? So you were kind of an early adopter to the potential of social media for independent musicians.
Yeah.
What were the signs? Like, you did it before the big music labels, got in line for that. And so how did you crack that code?
Yeah. Independent artists always are forward thinking. Independent labels, independent artists, like the major labels typically look to what the independent artists are doing and like steal their ideas.
Right.
And then they might slap a different name on it or something, and then it might become like new to the media or whatever. But if you actually look at what independent artists have been doing, for the past 20, 30 years, you would see that most independent artists, though that's the community that's on the forefront of things.
Yeah.
Because even now, like...
Why are they on the forefront of things? Like, what's the cultural thing?
Because they have less resources, so they have to be more creative.
Right.
You can't just throw a bunch of money at something and expect it to move, right? Whereas that's kind of what the labels have done is they've... a few years ago, they had access to when radio was more relevant or bigger platforms, big talk shows, things like that. They just kind of had a format of just how they would develop an artist or break an artist.
Right.
Whereas, independent artists, if you don't have the budget, you don't have access to those platforms, you have to get a little bit more creative on how you're going to start getting attention.
Right.
Because even now, if you look at what the major labels are promoting, the idea of the super fan, that's like a new thing. We've been catering to super fans for decades now in the independent community.
Yeah.
So, if you really want to look at what's happening in music or what's going to happen in music, just turn to the independent community and see what they're doing. And that's what the major labels will probably be doing in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, so, you're at Funk Volume, you've launched, you've identified these opportunities on Facebook and other social platforms. Walk us through kind of the trajectory, because you had a partner, right, Hopsin.
Yeah.
And, a lot of entrepreneurs go into business, not just music, with partners. And there are a lot of steaming piles of shit that you can step into, right? And it seems to me you found the biggest steaming pile of shit and threw your entire body into it, right? Right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the early days of Funk Volume, because it was beloved. In the independent music scene. It was beloved. It was like this beautiful, cherished, respected, scrappy ass, important label.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. And then we're going to get to the partnership thing, because holy shit, Dame.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I mean, it was, I don't know, I didn't catch the actual question, but, it was tough. It was challenging. It wasn't like we just started out crushing it.
Right.
It was putting in a lot of work, putting out a lot of content, again, engaging with fans, coming up with different ideas, contests to run, different, we on Facebook, you can have groups. So we had we had essentially a street team, but like an internet street team. So we would have like Funk Volume LA and Funk Volume Pittsburgh and Funk Volume New York, and we would identify like super fans to kind of lead each group.
Yeah.
So that was one way we really got the word out about what we were doing as we were building our internet street team. I would just kind of email our street team leaders if we were dropping a new video, and then they would post it in their respective groups, and that would give us a little bit a better chance for things to go viral or just spread a lot faster. So just coming up with ideas like that. We had a contest that we used to run because when we started getting traction, a lot of independent artists were looking up to what we were doing because they either wanted to be a part of what we were doing or build something on their own. So we would host a contest for artists called the Don't Fuck Up Our Beats contest.
Yeah.
And we hosted that for several years. And that ticked a lot of boxes, right? It grew our brand. It grew a platform for artists to get visibility, to win some money. Like contesting to me is a great way if you do them right. If you align incentives the right way, contesting can really help. So we were just doing a lot of things, and just a lot of things we did right. There weren't that many things that I felt like we did wrong initially.
Right.
But I just kept looking at the numbers; they kept going up. So I was like, okay, let's at some point we'll be able to monetize this. So that's kind of what kept me in it, is just kind of seeing the trajectory. Like, it never slowed down.
Yeah.
It just kept going up, up, up. So I was like, at some point, either somebody's going to want to sign us, or we're just going to be able to monetize our community and be able to, build a business off that.
Yeah. So you just, like, one of the words I would describe you, we had a brief, prep call in the virtual green room of life before this podcast, is that you really believed in Funk Volume. You put your heart and your soul, and you were pretty resilient, right, going into it, and with eyes wide open, right? I don't think you were sugarcoating anything going into it. So let's talk about the thing, right? The thing in the room. Let's talk about the partnership you had with Hopsin and what went wrong, and sort of the catastrophic ending of Funk Volume.
Yeah, so he became a partner. So we were 50-50 partners in the business, but then he was also signed to the label
he's an artist.
As an artist.
Yeah.
So he got paid different ways. So just to make things simple, like, okay, if we're 50-50 partners on the business, and let's just say for a project that we were doing, it's 50-50 to the artist, 50 to the label. That means, if on a profit for an album, if the artist gets 50%, the label gets 50%, Hop owns the label 50%. So it's essentially like 75-25. Right. Which is super close to what just like a management situation would be, right? A manager, if we didn't have a business together and I was just managing them, it typically would be like an 80-20 split. So you can look at it like for an additional 5%, he had somebody that was building out a company, signing other artists, working with the other artists, like basically managing the entire label. So, some people will be like, well, it wasn't a fair deal. Well, fair is subjective, but if you really look at how things were set up, it was extremely fair.
Right.
Maybe unfair.
Who was saying, like, who are the naysayers?
Because it's easy for people not to understand, like, that math that I just explained.
Because it sounds skewed.
Yeah.
Right.
And some people don't want to understand, right? So when things started going left, if Hop spins a certain narrative, it's easy for any artist to trash a manager or to trash a label owner because that's the narrative that already exists about music industry.
Yeah, it is.
From the outside looking in, if you're not a part of the music industry, you probably think that labels like take advantage of artists or managers take advantage of artists. So if that's the narrative that's already existing, it's easy for me to sell you that story, right? Just like a mechanic, right? Like some people think that mechanics overcharge. So if you told me that your mechanic overcharged, I'm already kind of probably believe it because that's just kind of the narrative about what they do because we have no idea how to change, fix engines and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's very easy for artists to lean into that narrative, and fans want to believe the artist.
And the artist has the fans, right? So the artist
they have
has
the connection
power,
for sure,
right?
for sure. And they have they'll have a huge platform. So all those things are stacked up against anybody saying anything different. Right. So yeah. So the label was doing well up until 2015. We had signed other artists. We had signed an artist named Busy Wright out of Las Vegas, an artist named Jaron Benton out of Atlanta. So we were doing well. I would say we really started. It was an actual business like starting in 2010, 2011. Those years prior, we were just kind of building.
Yeah.
And then the guys were touring the world. Everybody was doing well. We were getting good write-ups in different publications, lots of social media support. And then in 2015, after a tour that we had did, Hop and I had a conversation, and I had mentioned to him that he didn't work that hard, and that was just kind of the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
So I didn't think it was going to come to an end so fast.
So what does the end mean? All right, so you have this conversation and you say, "Hey, man, you don't work hard enough."
Yeah.
And then,
and that wasn't even really the top. That was just kind of like a matter. We were talking about like the tour, because typically at the end of every tour, we just make sure everybody's comfortable with the finances. I mean, we have an agreement. We have an agreement already with how things are going to be split, but we still have a conversation just to make sure everybody's comfortable. So we were having that conversation, and then in that conversation, he was suggesting that I make less money than what I was supposed to make. And that's when I said, hey, you don't even work that hard.
So it was just like an off the cuff.
Yeah, it was just kind of, it wasn't like, hey, I need to talk to you about how you're not working hard. Like, he never really lived up to his initial agreement, because our initial agreement was, if we're going to split the company 50-50, you not only need to be an artist, but you need to be
business partner.
You need to be like a chief creative officer for the other artists, right? To help them with their beats, help them with their videos and things like that. And that never materialized. And I wasn't tripping because the company was doing well. And I didn't really think that he could serve in that capacity at times for the other artists, because they're different than him. Hop is very good at his stuff, and he probably could help other artists that were similar in his lane. But so I never pressed it. I was like, okay, it was never something that I was like, okay, we need to go back to the drawing board because you said you were going to do this and you didn't do that. I had just mentioned after the tour that because he was suggesting that I made less money, I was like, look, you don't even work that hard. And then that was the beginning of the end.
It's just like hearing you tell this story, and it's a very, it's a popular story because of the utter destruction of that one conversation. And let's talk about what the end was, because here you are, you've built really in a short period of time what has become, I mean, am I overstating it if I say a legendary independent label?
It could have been legendary. It could have been. I felt like we only reached like 25% of our potential.
Yeah.
That
is heartbreaking.
If Funk Volume, everybody's moved on, and I'm off to great, building other things, but hypothetically, if we would have stuck together, because this was like right when streaming was starting to get popular.
Yep.
Like we would have crushed it in this environment, because, a lot of times independent artists have a hard time like keeping up with putting out a lot of content. Like today, in order to build some momentum, you need to constantly be present. You got to put out a lot of content. You got to drop a lot of music, and that's a lot of pressure for any one artist, right?
Right.
So, but if you had a label, if you had a team, you can kind of share some of those responsibilities. So because Funk Volume was so active all the time, we were always doing something. Somebody was dropping music, somebody was going on tour, a new merch drop, community service that we did on a monthly basis, a documentary. We were always doing something, and that would be perfect for a time like this, and it would take the stress off of any one artist, because they don't have to be responsible for like consistently staying present themselves. It would be, okay, this company wants to do like an article on the entire label. They would be a part of that, right? Somebody would be dropping an album, but the other artist would probably have a verse on it, so they would have, so there would be stories that the media would want to tell about an individual artist, but there would also be stories that they would want to tell about the collective.
Yeah.
And when you don't have that, now you don't have that going forward, you kind of have to make up for that attention that you were getting all by yourself, and that's difficult to do as a solo artist. So, I knew that it was going to be difficult for everyone, because everybody benefited from the collective and the platform that we had built. So it's just unfortunate. It's sad it doesn't exist anymore. But I guess you live and learn.
Yeah. So take us through the moment. Like, all right, so the conversation happens, and then everything starts to deteriorate between you and Hop.
Yeah.
Right. And it was.
And he immediately got lawyers involved.
Got lawyers.
There was no chance for a conversation. There was no chance to meet up. He blocked my number. Immediately went to social media to tell people that it was over. Immediately got lawyers involved. There was really no chance to just meet up and have a face-to-face conversation and like say, hey, this is, I feel like we're overreacting here. We're throwing away something huge here. But I think, ultimately there was a lot of ego at play. I think he felt he was, carrying most of the load. He felt like he had built the label almost by himself. So he felt like he would, who cares if Dame goes? I'll just put somebody else in that role.
Right.
And keep things moving.
Yeah.
So
talk about that, like the reputational damage that you went through personally, just through the social media and the word of mouth and just the ugliness.
Yeah.
This beautiful community that you can build can turn on you
for sure.
in a dime, and you are walking, talking proof of that. And, like the whole idea of entrepreneurs out there creating community, your resilience, right? Like the pain you must have gone through, because your name was getting dragged through the mud. Like it's almost an unrecoverable tailspin in some way. So let's talk a little bit about that,
Yeah, I mean, at the time I didn't really know what to do. I know that, I had my own smaller platform because people became to know me as the person that runs Funk Volume. So I have a few followers, but it pales in comparison to Hop's platform. So it wasn't like I was going to be able to, tell my side to everybody that he was telling his side to.
Right.
But I think I did go live one time. I think I did do a couple of interviews. But I just knew that it was something I was going to have to learn from. Something that I was just going to have to endure, and just over time, the people that may have believed some of that stuff, over time, if they cared and tapped into what I was doing, they would kind of recognize that, it wasn't true. And Hop and I sat down. He called me like 3 years later and apologized. And then we sat down and recorded a 4-hour podcast that's on YouTube. But he didn't post it. And because he didn't post it, I haven't talked to him since
Wow.
then. So it's probably been another like 3 or 4 years since I've talked to Hop.
Yeah.
Because to me, if you disrespect somebody loud, the apology needs to be just as loud as the disrespect. And if it's not, then I can't. It's just best if we don't interact.
Yeah.
You know, it's all good if you're not willing to, if you're not willing to apologize as loud as you disrespected me. Then, I mean, because he dropped a video that drug my name through the mud, and it has like 100 million views.
Yeah, that's what he said.
The podcast that we did, I think the highest episode has like 100,000.
Yeah.
So it's all good. At least something closer to the truth lives online, and if you cared about the story, you know, or if you were debating with someone, you guys can just watch the video with him and I talking in the same space. No AI. It was just a it was just conversation.
Two dudes.
Yeah. So they could check it if they want to, but you know, you just learn from the experience. There are some people that have hit me up that have gone through similar things. I'm like, hey, Dan, how do you deal with this?
Yeah.
And I tell them like, hey, just get off social media.
Yep.
Surround yourself with the people you love, and you know, continue to do good work, because over time, you know, your true character will be revealed to the people that need to see it. So.
Yeah, for sure. And now, like, as an armchair, you know, sort of seasoned startup guy, you know, if you could go back, would you change anything about that partnership, or would you just embrace the experience? Like, how would you change that?
Yeah.
You know?
No, I feel like, and I've said this before to a few other folks, you know, one thing I could have done was to bring in like a more seasoned music person that was like a number two to me, right? Because when you have, like, if it's just me and the artist, it's typically me kind of telling them what they should be doing all of the time. It's the same voice. Even if I'm right 100% of the time, the same voice is going to get annoying at some point.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some tension. So if there were another person that was respected by them, respected by me, that has some experience in the music industry, I feel like they could have buffered a lot of different situations and eased some tension and just bettered the communication. And I also wouldn't have put all my eggs in the Funk Volume basket. Like, because at that point I was like, man, this is amazing. We're going to be able to build so many other businesses off of this brand. You know, I would have other things just to kind of protect myself against the what happened, essentially, the chances of what just kind of going away at some point.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have put all my eggs in, because I don't feel like it would have taken me as long to kind of rebound from it if I had other things going, you know, at the same time.
But it's hard to do that when you're in it, right?
Yeah.
Like the passion, like you know, because if you stop to like add reason and logic to what you're doing, some of the magic can be lost, you know?
Yeah, because I had an opportunity to invest in some other things, and part of the reason I didn't was like I didn't want the guys thinking that they didn't have like my full time and attention.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And
exactly, it's like it's a commitment thing, you know. I mean, there are so many lessons from, you know, this part of your career, which, by the way, you know, you're not done yet.
Not at all. No, we're just getting started.
Yeah,
we're just
you're
getting
doing
started.
all kinds of cool things. But, you know, I think it's having clear eyes going into partnerships and really examining that. But also, I think that there's something to be said for chasing the fire in your belly. And you know what? You might lose it all. We all fail at some point, you know, and failure is an opportunity to grow in different ways. So, you know, there is no shame in that. It's unfortunate because it was personally painful for you. And that part sucks.
That part sucks. And just the part that I mentioned before, just knowing that we reached like 25% of our potential.
Yeah.
Like not seeing something all the way through.
It feels
is
icky.
like,
yeah.
Damn, and how much work it even took to get to the 25%.
Yeah.
Right? So to just see it get thrown away and have your own team not recognize the value of what we built collectively.
Right.
You know, it's like, damn, like you don't realize the value of this platform.
Right.
You might think that you can keep doing this by yourself, and you can replicate it if you put the right pieces in place, but it's extremely difficult.
Right.
So yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, there's I was listening to, you know, some of the podcasts and media that you've done over the last couple of years, and we talked about this briefly, but you had this great quote, and it was, talking about artists and, kind of creatives in the business world. And you said that, funding or lack of funding is an excuse.
Yeah.
Right. And I that to me was like a moment of like profound wisdom, and that, I think that's not just for musicians. I think that's for everyone,
Yeah.
right? All entrepreneurs. But can you talk us through a little bit about where that came from?
Yeah, I mean, I've been working with creators since 2008, and I've seen them do the most amazing things with very little to no money, right? I've seen rappers just start building a community by turning on their phone and doing different freestyle series, right? Or the creator that we talked about, Mr. Hotspot, like he literally built his community by turning around his phone and encouraging people to smile, just being positive. And you can start to build community with very little to no money. You just have to have a story. You have to be consistent. You have to be able to make quality content. And you just have to have a message that people resonate with.
Right.
And as soon as you do that, as soon as you have a following as soon as you have people that follow you for a particular reason, you can sell merchandise, you can reach out to brands for sponsorship. Even with services like Printify or Printful, you don't even need to have money to sell merch anymore.
Yeah.
Like you can just use these services to drop ship items to your fans. So you can sell merchandise with very little to no money.
Right.
A website doesn't cost that much anymore. You just have to put in the work.
Yeah.
So to me, when an artist says like their biggest issue is not having money, I'm like, man, like you're just either you're lazy or you just don't know what people are capable of these days.
And what resources you have at your finger. I mean, my God, Facebook is free, like Twitter is free. Like you can do so much with so little, and just bootstrap.
You gotta bootstrap
as an
it.
artist, as a business person. I mean, it's just sitting right there waiting, like opportunity after opportunity.
Yeah, because you can, like I said, you can, even if you sell a few shirts, let's just say you make $60, $80 or whatever. Take some of that money, run some ads next month.
Yeah.
And in addition to just your organic growth, you probably get some sales via the ads, and instead of $80, it might be $140.
Right.
Rinse and repeat, and then continue to work on your content, continue to reach out to other creators and collaborate that are in, with creators that are in your lane. There's so much that you can do that doesn't involve a huge check. But that idea, some artists don't want to lock in for that because it might take too long, or it's, they prefer some imaginary check to just fall out of the sky. And to be honest with you, a lot of music creators, even if they got $20,000 today or $25,000 today, they wouldn't even know what to do with it.
Right.
So yeah, when especially music artists, when they tell me that, because I still work in the music space, I always tell them, like, look, that's not your problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So let's talk really quickly about, what the uniqueness of independent musicians and that niche, actually a really big and growing niche.
Yes.
What are the challenges, right? We talked briefly about AI coming into the mix, and we talked about the nimbleness of independent musicians and management and all of that. But what are the challenges that you see in the short term?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's what we talked about a little bit earlier. Just just feeling pressure to do kind of everything on your own.
Right.
Right, and coming up with the right messaging, the right branding. Figuring out the cadence of content, what types of content. Because if you're an artist, you don't have to drop a song every week. As a matter of fact, you probably shouldn't drop a song every week. But there's other ways to engage your audience, right? Depending on what it is that you do, right? If you're an R&B artist and a lot of your music is about relationships, maybe you're going live every Thursday and talking people through relationship issues, or having people tell funny relationship stories, and that's additional content that complements your music. Maybe your intro is your music, and you have a podcast. You can do anything. You just try. You just try it, and I would encourage people to be consistent with it for at least 6 months or so. and just improve over time, that's why I liked Facebook, because, if at, around the time that it crashed and burned, let's just say from 2008 when we jumped on it to 2016, if you were looking at a post from 2016 and then you scrolled all the way back to 2008, you would see how we bettered the quality of our videos, bettered the quality of our graphic design. Like, everything just got better, but it was kind of cool to see that over time. We didn't start out having the best camera. We didn't start out having, access to the best graphic designers or directors and things like that. But you start where you're at, and you just get better and better over time as you learn new things, or you have the resources to hire new people, or collaborate with other people that have a specific expertise in sound or lighting or whatever it is. You just continue to get better. And that's ultimately, I do the same thing with the comedian that I work with now, Big Ja. That's kind of been the same. If you look at his videos from 5 years ago, it's night and day.
Yeah.
The stuff that we do now is movie quality. It's TV ready. That was not the case, but he had to work to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you like in some instances with entrepreneurs and startups and, people in the creative industries, going back to your funding is an excuse quote, some people just fail to start, right? Out of fear of failure, fear of no money, the excuse thing. And so for artists, sort of an overlooked group of entrepreneurs, like, what is your advice for just start, just fucking go, just do something?
Yeah. I mean, and I put myself in a situation where it wasn't like a huge risk, right? Like, I didn't get into music or do anything entrepreneurial until, I had money saved up. I had went to school. I got my MBA. I have a great network. I have a lot of people that love and care for me. Like, worst case scenario, if I swung and missed, I'd have like a bunch of couches to be able to sleep on.
Right.
So like my floor, that's the way I looked at it. Like, my floor is not, I can swing for the fences because I know that, one, I believe in what I'm doing, but if I make a huge miscalculation and I miss, I know that people are going to help me for at least...
You're only going to fall so far.
I can only fall. So but I put myself in that position, right? Like, I worked for a long time and I, got educated. So, and other people aren't in that position. So I still would encourage them to swing, but I recognize that
the hesitation.
Yeah, so I don't, I don't just pour on to people that maybe aren't in the same situation. But I also feel like you can take mitigated risk as well, right? A lot of entrepreneurs have a full-time job. I have a full-time job now. I'm the director of communications for a music distribution company called Two Loss. But then I also do my entrepreneurial stuff. I think that's kind of especially in the music industry, that's kind of how a lot of people move.
Little side hustle.
And they complement I feel like they're separate, but I feel like they also complement each other.
Right.
So I love what I'm doing now, being able to still manage creatives. I don't manage music artists, but I manage
for now.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be tough for me to jump back into that game, but I think that's if you have a job and you start something more entrepreneurial on the side, you're mitigating because you're still getting consistent income. And hopefully what starts out as a side hustle, eventually you might be able to leave your full time, or you might continue to do both. You might just love both. Like, I love the situation. I love what I do at Two Lost, and I love the stuff that I'm doing with Persephone and Big Ja, managing them and trying to get into the television and film space.
Right.
So, I feel like
But you're also like you're big at giving back, right? Yeah. Despite what you have been through, with this failed, flame out of a partnership. You have the music entrepreneur club that you started, and like you really believe in the concept of creatives learning to be entrepreneurs and
Yeah.
business people. So talk about that. Like you don't make any money doing this. You do it
Yeah.
because you believe in it.
Yeah, so the Music Entrepreneur Club was born out of the ashes of Funk Volume, just realizing that one of the reasons that I feel like my label fell apart is because the artist didn't really understand the business. And it's tough to have those business conversations when one side doesn't have the information that you have. And it wasn't because information was withheld, it's because a lot of artists don't prioritize learning the business.
Right.
So that's why the Music Entrepreneur Club started. It's had different... We've done different things. We've taken it on the road. It's been a podcast. We've had weekly live sessions. But ultimately, not only share my experience, but we have guests on the platform, or we've had guests on the platform that share their experience. Because music, unlike being a plumber or being a lawyer, there's no mandatory certification. There's no mandatory number of years of schooling. Anybody can say they're in the music industry. As soon as you upload a song to Spotify, you can say you're in the music industry.
Right.
So it's a lot of different people with different backgrounds, different ideas, different opinions. But I really think it's important for artists to learn the business that they say they want a career in. They should understand publishing. They should understand management and understand how what touring is like and what a booking agent is and all of these things.
Just foundational things
for sure. And I think our platform really looks at it from, we have conversations that aren't going to be in books because the books can only tell you so much. You have to have some real life experiences, especially when dealing with artists, to kind of talk through different situations, like how to manage expectations. There's just a lot of things that once you actually get into this and start having a little bit of success, a book's not going to tell you.
No.
So
you have to immerse yourself.
Yeah. And the music industry evolves so fast. There's different services. Things change monthly at this point. So it's important to have a continuous conversation, and not all information is for every artist. There's different information that's more important as you progress in your career, right? Beyonce may say something, and then an independent artist might hear that information, but that information's not for you. That's for how Beyonce moves.
Right.
You're not Beyonce.
Right.
So that information doesn't really apply to you, and you have to have, I feel like, a platform to have that dialogue.
Right, you got to earn it. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and we, so you have the Entrepreneur Club for musicians. You've got you're at Two Lost. You're sort of a strategist, and you said you're in an office now in an actual building.
Yeah.
And you said you dig it.
Yeah.
You like a little structure right now.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I never had, because with Funk Volume, we just worked out of our house.
Yeah.
We would meet up here and there, but we didn't have an office. So I never had an office, because even when I was working at Deloitte, you typically travel to different client sites, and I was more junior. And then when I was working at Goldman Sachs, I was more junior. Wells Fargo, I was more junior, so I didn't have an office. So I didn't know that I would care, because I never had an office. But I think it's cool, having my own space. And I'm gonna build out a little production area to do, podcasting and live streaming and things like that. So I'm enjoying it. Two Lost is doing well. And then, like I said, the other stuff that I'm working on with Big Jaw and Persephone, all that stuff's moving forward. So I'm feeling really good about this year.
Yeah, no, it seems like you're in a really good place, and you're at peace with all of the things. And this is sort of unrelated, but when we had our conversation, before this recording, we talked about music, right, and musicians and the things musicians say that have nothing to do with the love we feel for their music. And you had really good advice for me, because I was pissed about Kanye, who I used to love, right? And we don't have to get political about it, but just that he started sounding different to me after all of this. And you said, hey, there's thousands, Walk us through that advice.
You know, when an artist, because I was a huge Kanye fan in the early days, and he's evolved. You know, and I think it's easy to kind of be upset when somebody that you invest your time, your money into, they evolve into something that maybe you no longer agree with. But you know, as a fan, we can't control how people evolve.
Right.
We can only control if we are a fan or not. Right. So once I kind of step back and realize, like, look, we can't. I don't have any control over that, but what I can do is shift focus to all these other dope artists that probably could use my dollars even more, you know, especially in the independent space. There's a lot of people making music. So there's no reason to get mad at any one artist if you are not a fan anymore, because
there's nothing you can do.
There's nothing that you can do, but there's also so many people making music. I promise you that there's somebody else out there that you love just as much, if not more.
Yeah. It was really good advice. Like, it kind of changed the tenor of my day, and definitely of my workout.
Yeah. So I mean, you could listen to the old stuff or just listen to something else. You know, but also to the artists out there, I think it's really important how you use your platform. You know, there's, unfortunately, in our society, you know, we give celebrities probably a little too much credibility. Mm-hmm. It's like
power,
too much power, because you sing well, you rap well. That doesn't mean you know anything about politics.
Right.
That doesn't mean you know any. You might know about all of those things, but right now you've only proven to me that you make good music.
Right.
And you need to realize that you don't get too invested into these people. You don't know them, and you don't really know what they're about.
Right.
Right? And sometimes you don't want to know what they're about.
Yeah. I think it's really true, because there's sort of the mystery of it, but we give our celebrities a lot of credibility for things that they should not be credited with.
We rely on them. We care about their opinions too much.
Much.
If they're well researched in a particular area, I'm not saying that musicians should just be musicians, but you have to prove to me that you have some credibility in another area before I be like, okay, this person knows what they're talking about. You know, so
exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, and kind of concluding this part, and then we're going to do a little rapid fire question here. So for musicians, especially, I think you've given some really good insights into the industry, but for these creatives, not just musicians, but people, humans who want to create and make that their life and be entrepreneurial, what is the best advice you can give creatives?
Continue to just get better at your craft. I feel like a lot, especially younger creators, we're trying to skip steps. You know, but as music evolves, I feel like only the artists that really understand music, that really understand what they're doing, can change with the times.
Yeah.
There's a lot of young creators that you know, hit a grand slam out the gate, and then they didn't really build that foundation. They don't have that foundational knowledge. They don't really know how they hit that grand slam.
Yeah.
So when they're trying to hit the grand slam again, they don't know how to replicate it.
Yeah.
So I would really get in it for the right reasons and really take the time to hone your skills. You know, even if you're not putting things out in the public every single day, just make sure that you're getting better at whatever it is you do.
Yeah.
Whether you're a comedian, or a music artist, whatever you do, I just hope you care about the art, and you're not just kind of looking forward to the money that you think you're going to make.
Yeah.
So.
That messes everything up, honestly. If you see the money before you see the art, you might be in it for the wrong reasons.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Here we go. Best album ever produced.
My favorite album is Joe's All That I Am album. I don't know if music people would say it's the best produced album, but it's my favorite. So I'm going with Joe, All That I Am.
What are you most proud of?
I'm proud of the network that I have and the people that surround me. Like, I invest a lot of time into my community, not like the music community. I'm talking about Dame's community. My family, my friends. As long as they see me positively, it's a win. So I'm definitely proud of that.
Best advice you've ever gotten?
Best advice. I've received so much advice over my life. The best advice that I've ever gotten. Just continue to do the work. Continue to do the work. I feel like if your heart's in the right place, you continue to do the work. Even if you hit some bumps in the road, you're gonna be okay. Just continue to do the work.
And I think don't be afraid of the hard work. Right?
Yeah.
I think that your story of resilience is really one of you did hard shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, last one. So if you're in a conversation with someone and you want to express yourself, do you prefer to say shit or fuck?
I'm not really a fuck guy.
You're breaking a trend in California.
I'd probably say shit. I don't use. I think I use fuck every once in a while, but I definitely more shit.
That's good. That's refreshing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the rest of the California interviews have all been fuck people. So we've got one shit on the couch.
Yeah, definitely. I don't even cuss too much, but
No,
when I
you
do,
don't.
but when I do, I think I would say shit before fuck for sure.
It's really good to
Yeah.
have that clarified for the world.
Yeah.
I think there's so many lessons that we can take away from this conversation, Dame, and I'm eternally grateful that you made the humongous drive from Hollywood to Santa Monica, only 3 hours round trip, and I look forward to hearing what the community has to say and the interaction, and you've just given us really great insight. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.